A successful landlord with a thriving property business, Jacob Harris prided himself on his ability to keep everything under control, until Sarah, a single mother struggling to make ends meet, fell behind on her rent. He evicted her, pushing her into even more difficult circumstances. But Jacob's empire soon began to crumble, leading him to a humbling downfall. Now, in a twist of fate, he finds himself working for a new boss, Sarah, the very woman he once cast aside. How did she rise so high? And what does she have planned for the man who ruined her life? As their paths collide again, secrets and buried resentments resurface, setting the stage for a reckoning neither of them expected. Welcome to Limelight Tales. Brace yourself for a tale where power, revenge, and redemption collide in the most unexpected way. Jacob Harris had always believed in playing by the rules. As a landlord, he prided himself on being firm but fair. To him, renting out his properties wasn't just a business. It was a means of maintaining control, ensuring that everything ran smoothly. So, when Sarah Bennett, one of his tenants, began falling behind on her rent, Jacob saw it as a breach of his carefully maintained order. Sarah was a single mother, living with her 10-year-old son, Liam. She had moved into Jacob's apartment a year ago, hoping for a fresh start after her husband had left her. But life had been relentless. She lost her job as an administrative assistant when the company downsized, and the little savings she had vanished in a matter of months. Despite her best efforts to find work, she struggled to pay the rent. One cold evening, Sarah stood in her dimly lit apartment, staring at the eviction notice Jacob had slipped under her door earlier that day. It gave her a week to leave the premises. She'd begged Jacob for more time, explaining her situation, but he had been unmoved. "Business is business," he had said, his tone final. Sarah's heart ached as she packed up their belongings, trying to shield Liam from the gravity of their situation. She didn't let him see her cry, but inside she burned with a mix of humiliation and anger. Jacob's cold dismissal of her plight had lit a fire within her, a determination to rise above her circumstances, no matter how impossible it seemed. The week flew by, and Sarah and Liam moved into a cramped shelter. Though the situation was dire, Sarah refused to give up. She spent her days applying for jobs and attending interviews, refusing to let her circumstances define her. Finally, after weeks of rejection, she landed a position at a growing tech company. The pay wasn't great, but it was a start. As the months went by, Sarah poured herself into her work. Her natural problem-solving skills and ability to manage people didn't go unnoticed. Her boss, impressed by her leadership potential, promoted her to a managerial role. With her new salary, Sarah and Liam moved into a modest but cozy apartment. For the first time in a long while, she felt like she was reclaiming her life. Meanwhile, Jacob's life took an unexpected downturn. A risky investment in a new property had backfired, leaving him in financial trouble. To make ends meet, he sold one of his apartments and took a job as a mid-level employee at a tech company. A humbling experience for someone who had always been his own boss. Jacob's first day at his new job was nerve-wracking. He wasn't used to taking orders, and the corporate world was foreign to him. As he walked into the office, he froze in disbelief. Sitting in the corner office, looking every bit the accomplished professional, was Sarah. The shock on Jacob's face didn't go unnoticed. Sarah's initial reaction was one of surprise, but she quickly masked it, maintaining her composure. She greeted him politely as though he were just another employee. Jacob, however, couldn't shake his unease. The tables had turned, and now Sarah held the power. Over the next few weeks, Jacob struggled to adjust to his new reality. Every interaction with Sarah was fraught with tension. He couldn't help but wonder if she harbored resentment and if she would use her position to make his life difficult. But Sarah remained professional, treating him no differently than any other employee. Just as Jacob began to settle into his new role, strange things started happening. Sarah received anonymous notes at her desk, warning her about Jacob's past as a landlord. At first, she dismissed them as office gossip, but then an older employee, Margaret, approached her, sharing a story that sounded all too familiar. Margaret had once rented from Jacob and claimed she had been evicted under dubious circumstances. Intrigued and suspicious, Sarah began digging into Jacob's background. She discovered a troubling pattern of evictions, some of which skirted legal boundaries. The more she uncovered, the more she realized how many people had suffered because of Jacob's greed. Sarah confronted Jacob in private, presenting him with her findings. Jacob, cornered, confessed. He admitted that his desire for financial gain had clouded his judgment, leading him to make unethical decisions. But he insisted that he regretted his actions, especially his treatment of Sarah. Jacob Harris's unethical decisions stemmed from desperation and greed. After overextending himself with a risky property investment, he found himself drowning in debt. To cover his losses, he focused on maximizing profit from his existing tenants. He evicted people like Sarah not because they were unworthy tenants, but because he saw an opportunity to re-rent their homes at higher prices after minor renovations. To justify these actions, Jacob convinced himself it was just business, ignoring the human cost. Over time, this pattern became his go-to survival strategy. His choices weren't driven by malice, but by fear of financial ruin and an unwillingness to let go of his ambitions. Yet, in pursuing wealth, Jacob abandoned his moral compass, leading to the destruction of lives, until his downfall forced him to face the consequences of his greed. Sarah was torn. A part of her wanted to report Jacob to the authorities, but another part of her recognized the humanity in his remorse. Instead, she devised a plan. Jacob would work directly under her supervision and contribute a portion of his salary to a fund for tenants he had wronged. The fund would help people like Margaret get back on their feet. Though reluctant at first, Jacob agreed. Humbled by Sarah's mercy, he began to see his role at the company as an opportunity for redemption. He worked hard to prove himself, not just to Sarah but to everyone around him. Over time, he even formed an unexpected bond with Liam, helping the boy with his schoolwork and offering advice. Months later, at the company's annual gala, Sarah stood on stage, receiving an award for her outstanding contributions. As the crowd applauded, her eyes found Jacob. He was no longer the arrogant landlord she once knew, but a man who had learned from his mistakes and was striving to do better. Sarah felt a sense of closure. Life had thrown them both into unexpected roles, forcing them to confront their flaws and grow. Their story, whispered around the office, became a testament to the unpredictable twists of fate and the possibility of redemption. This story serves as a reminder that ambition without compassion can lead to devastating consequences. In the pursuit of success, it's easy to lose sight of the humanity in others, but redemption is possible if one is willing to take responsibility and make amends. True success isn't measured by wealth or power, but by the impact we have on the lives of those around us, and the kindness we choose to show, even in our most desperate moments. Thank you for taking the time to watch and connect with this story. If it resonated with you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Limelight Tales for more narratives. Here's a thought to carry with you. Life is a series of choices. choose compassion, and you might just rewrite someone else's story.